Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. This is Southern Area Briefing. My name is Paul Causey. I'm one of the members of the Central Contra Costa Sanitary District Board of Directors. I am responsible for the southern area of our district, including Danville, Alamo, and San Ramon. And so we're here this morning to try to talk a little bit about and bring up to date all of you who are here on some of the issues confronting the district, some of the things that we're looking forward to, and some of the innovative and exciting things that have happened since last year's presentation. Well, again, welcome everybody, and thanks for taking your time this morning to be here to try to get a little bit of an update and overview of kind of what's going on at Central San. Obviously, we are no longer in the wastewater business, out of sight and out of mind. We're doing our best to provide to you an overview of kind of who we are, some of the initiatives we have going on. We're very excited about several of those initiatives, and we're going to talk a little bit about those today. And so what I'm going to try to cover today very quickly in the short time that we have together is talk a little bit about our financial performance, some infrastructure investments that have gone on and looking toward the future because in many cases the wastewater business is a very cost-intensive, expenditure-intensive area, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about some local programs that are going to impact the southern area over the next 2 or 3 years. We're going to talk a little bit about rates and charges because that's always an interesting subject for the ratepayers, and we'll give you some background on kind of where we are with that. We'll talk about some very new initiatives that have been moving forward with the district, talk a little bit about, or maybe a lot about, recycled water, because that's a very important issue for the district, and we really have gotten some very exciting involvement from several of the agencies around us that we want to overview for you today. We'll talk a little bit about innovation and some of the things the district's doing to do our best to keep costs down and be as efficient as possible. And finally, we'll talk a little bit about our outreach and education programs and some very exciting things that the district is doing moving forward to really get the public to understand who we are and what our needs are. So with that, this is the service area. And if you all picked up the brochure in the back, you know how big we are. We serve 13 public agencies in the local service area, in our local service area, including Concord, Mountain View, most of San Ramon, but Dublin San Ramon provides the southern area of San Ramon. But in our case, we have 1,500 miles of pipe, 18 pump stations, 52 million gallon per day treatment plant that's currently treating about 30 million gallons a day. All the rest of our important demographics is included in this handout that you can get at the back of the room. So I'm not going to really go over too much who we are and how we work. Today is really try to talk a little bit about our background and the things that we're doing. So who are we and what do we operate under? Well, you know, you'd think wastewater is pretty simple. The flow goes down the pipe, comes to the treatment plant, no big deal. Well, I was flabbergasted to learn several years ago that district operates under 109 separate regulatory permits that we have to meet the conditions for. And of those, some of the largest are the NPDES permit, National Pollution Discharge Elimination Permit, which is our treatment plant. We have a nutrient watershed program that we're working with the regional board on that could be very expensive in the long term. And finally, our collection system is operated under a permit from the state of California and the regional board with waste discharge requirements that went into effect about 10 years ago. But that's not all. We also have an incinerator at our district, which is the only incinerator west of the Mississippi, and as a result of that we also have some pretty large air requirements under the Clean Air Act, and we also have responsibilities under the Global Warming Solutions Act. So those are just some of the big permits that we have to deal with in order to take the sewage, receive it, clean it up, recycle some of the water, and then put some into the bay. So let's talk a little bit now about, and I'm going to move quickly through their financial performance so you have some sense of who we are and what our costs overall are. So here's our budget for the last 3 years, the current year 17-18. You can see that our O&M budget, total budget of about $132 million a year in order to operate our program. Next year the number will be about 140. The new budget for next year was just presented to the board yesterday and overviewed. Our O&M budget, you can see, is relatively flat, where our capital budget is expanding quite significantly over the next several years. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Next year, our overall O&M budget is only going up by about $6,000. Not a bad deal in today's economy, but our capital budget is going to move from $42 million to almost $45 million. So here's our O&M budget over at least the last 5 years. You can see it is very, very flat, and we've done everything we can to try to move as much money into our capital programs and to our replacement projects and programs that we have at the district as much as possible. So we have really maintained a flat operations and maintenance program while at the same time really ramping up very significantly from our master plan all of the work that needs to do to replace and handle the facilities that we have. The revenues that the district receives really come into several large areas, sewer service charge being the single largest. City of Concord, who is a contract service, we provide contract service to, provides about $21 million a year of our total revenue. We also receive tax revenue. So not only do we have sewer service charges, but we also receive a portion of the tax revenue from Prop 13 100 years ago when I was a wee child. And, but we do get money from that helps us with our overall costs. We have some capacity fees that we receive money for, and then some other sources that are relatively de minimis, but overall we have about $147 million of money we expect to come in for 18-19's budget. Property tax revenue. Well, most agencies in California do not receive property tax. Many of the wastewater agencies do, some, but you can see over time what our property tax revenue has been as a function of the total value to a household. So an RUE is a residential unit equivalent or dwelling unit equivalent, but you can see since 2009-10, our numbers have ranged from $74 per household to about $96. So that's really on top of the sewer service charge that the district receives on an annual basis. These property tax revenues are collected on the property tax rolls along with our sewer service charge for single family homes, and they constitute the total revenue that the district receives to pay for our annual operating and O&M and capital costs. So sewer construction fund revenue. Well, sewer service charges in large part are funding that, and you can see that this year, while we have included a very large 7% rate increase the board just approved a couple of weeks ago, we've this year directed the entire amount to our sewer construction fund for renewal and replacement. So there's no real increase in the O&M fund for the sewer service charge. It is all going this year to the cost of renewal and replacement. And so you can see down below at the bottom, the rate increase and volume charges are going to provide an additional $5 million into the construction fund. And then there's an additional $8 million related to having met our goals for reserves. We have pretty substantial reserves. We've also had some, at the end of the year, we've had some carryover numbers, and those carrying over numbers are being put directly into our sewer construction fund in the hopes of reducing the need for bonding, in hopes of really getting more of a pay-as-you-go type of program for our capital program, as opposed to having to issue large amounts of bonding in order to accomplish those programs. So we're very proud of the fact that we're pushing as much money as we can towards sewer construction. And you can see here from the sewer service charge how much is going directly into the construction fund from those funds. We're going to raise about $75 million, but next year only $67 million of that is going to go to the O&M fund. We'll be able to fund the rest of it from other sources of revenue. So how intensive is operating a wastewater treatment plant and a wastewater program? We have over $4 billion replacement value of the assets in place. 1,500 miles of collection system, the treatment plant, household hazardous waste, recycled water facilities. We are one of the most cost-intensive industries in the world. And in the United States, we actually, from the standpoint of replacement value, are far more expensive than even gas and electric companies. So we have a lot of breakdown of things that we need to replace. Our $4 billion is broken out to mostly the collection system, 1,500 miles of pipe, treatment plant at 52 million gallons a day, and then we have a small recycled water program. And the general improvements generally cover our structures, our buildings, our vehicles, our IT programs, and those kinds of things. So you can see what the split of these assets for the $4 billion replacement value is. So what have we done in the last few years in order to take care of the issues that we have? Well, you can see here how much money the district has spent over the last 10 years in taking care of our infrastructure investment for that $4 billion. You can see broken out here the various locations that we put money. And over the last 10 years, we have spent almost $96 million on the treatment plant. We've spent $152 million total over 10 years on the collection system, the 1,500 miles of pipe. We've spent $46 million on general improvements, and that's mostly in the seismic area, in IT support, those kinds of things. And then finally, and the smallest item is this CIP program contingency, which is a brand new item we added to the budget a year ago to take care of those things that are unknown, new projects that pop up that we didn't know anything about. So it's really been, over the last 10 years, we've spent almost $305 million on infrastructure replacement and renewal. So what did you get for that? Well, at least in the collection system, where we spent the $152 million, you can see a significant reduction in the overall overflows that have gotten to the environment. And if you look just in the last 10 years, from 2007 to 2017, we've reduced our overflows into the system from 85 overflows a year down to 38. We have one of the lowest SSO rates per 100 miles of pipe around. We have a 2.7 SSO rate, which compares more than favorably with both our region and Region 2, as well as the state numbers. So that's part of the results of the work that we've had to do in our collection system. But what does the future look like? Well, the future looks like a huge increase in the replacement value. The treatment plant now is between 30 and 40 years old, has lots of replacement needs, and we did a master plan a couple of years ago that resulted in a huge increase in our overall capital program. And you can see here, in the past we spent about $30 million a year on renewal and replacement. Now it's going to ramp up, and we're going to get over $100 million a year in the next 5 or 6 years. And these are based on improvements that we've looked at that were identified in the master plan. But we are continuing to look at these improvements as we move through into pre-design and design, to the best ways to implement these programs, the best ways to be as efficient as possible, and to evaluate whether we need all the improvements that are there. And just by way of seeing, over the last year, when I was here a year ago, we indicated we would need about $872 million worth of money over the next 10 years. Well, we've managed to get that down with work we've done this year. The staff's done a great job of really cutting that down to about $805 million as a result of some of the pre-treatment work we've done. And we're going to talk about some of those innovative projects and some of the things that have resulted from the work that the staff has done to really get in and determine what we really need to do. But it's going to be expensive, and that means we're going to have rate increases. And rate increases really mean that overall the ratepayers are going to have to pay for most of the replacement as we go forward, because there are no longer federal funds or state funds to really pay for these kinds of improvements. So let's talk a little bit about our infrastructure investment and kind of go through some of the things that we've accomplished over the last few years so you can kind of see what we're doing and where those things are. We've just completed a pre-design for 6 of our 18 pump stations, which are very old and need to be replaced. We've completed, just about completed half of the program to replace our bar screens and our headworks programs, and that will take a lot of the floatable items that are really getting into the treatment process, like plastics and those kinds of things, out of the system, so that we're not putting those things out into the bay. We are replacing and have done seismic improvements to our pump and blower building. We've had a pretty extensive seismic evaluation of all our facilities, and they all need to require upgrades. We did the administration building 3 or 4 years ago, upgraded that, and now we're moving forward with the other buildings on site. We've done some pilot projects, and the wet scrubber is probably the big one, looking at our furnace emissions to determine in the future what we really need to do for solids disposal. And we're working on a solids handling facility and evaluating some of those things. And then in the collection system, we annually are doing probably between 3 and 7 miles of replacement and many of you may have run into projects that we've actually been pursuing both in Pleasant Hill and in Lafayette, Martinez, or Orinda, if you've driven around and seen some of the construction taking place. So these are some of the recent things we've accomplished, but what are we going to have to do going forward? Well, next year, and what was presented to the board yesterday at our board meeting and has been discussed with our various committees for the next year, we have a very large solids handling facility improvement project. We're going to do a lot of mechanical and concrete work at our treatment plant, which is now relatively old and needs upgrades. We're going to look at our filter plant and clear well improvements, and these are all for recycled water. And unfortunately, last year we learned that we had some damage from the big rains that were there into the clear well that we have, and so we're going to have a very large project to really deal with our current existing recycled water program in order to be able to provide water to Zone 1 and our other requirements. IT, you know, IT changes about as fast as you can buy an iPad, and so our IT budget is a big one. We've had some security evaluations done, and we're making some steps to improve the security of our IT systems to make sure that our utility is completely, well, as much as you can, protected from any kind of intrusions. And we're looking also at going forward with and looking at energy recovery and blower replacement. Energy is a very big thing. We're one of the largest energy consumers in the local area, and we're looking at how to efficiently take care of that. And finally, we're looking at seismic upgrades next year for our plant operations building to assure that there won't be any problems in an earthquake. Not a big deal other than the fact that we're, 5,000 feet from a fault, and so we have to be worried about anything that might move along out near us. So those are the projects we're going to be pursuing this year. Most of these are design projects, and they will be in design. Some of them are very large projects that will have future impacts on our budget. Major projects in the collection system for next year. Pump station upgrades, that's the design. Ultimately, these 6 pump stations will probably cost us in the range of $50 million to replace, but next year is the design for the first 3. We're doing renovations in our collection system, and you can see several projects there totaling about 7 miles of pipeline. We do about 10,000 linear feet in each one of these projects, and so we've got 4 of them out there right now, and we're going to talk about some of the impacts on the local area, especially in Alamo, going forward in a few minutes. So what's the big deal? Well, the master plan, this is a layout of our treatment plant. You can see the planning that was done as part of that program, and all of the numbers that you see here are projects that may need to be related and done. You can see a whole lot of open space that we have at the district's plant. That open space generally is for overflows during wet weather periods, because the treatment plant sometimes jumps up to over 200 million gallons of flow coming into the district, and we can't handle that with a 52 million gallon plant. So water goes out into these green spaces, but these green spaces are also open for the opportunity for solar energy, which I would like to see, or things that in the future might be able to be utilized in those areas. But all of the numbers that you see inside the treatment plant itself are replacement projects that need to be pursued going forward in our master plan over the next 20 years. So local projects, a couple of local projects that you should be aware of. The first one actually is in the Alamo area. This project was awarded as part of the project for the Walnut Creek replacements that's out on the street right now, and the contractor will be engaging pretty quickly. But you can see here that on Austin Lane, in that area, we have 2 pipes that are going to be done by open cut and by high density drilling. And so those 2 projects will be impacting the Alamo MAC area this year. And that work will probably be done mostly this summer. The second project that we're working on, looking forward to in the future, is in Danville. And the staff is beginning the evaluations and beginning their contact with the city to determine the pipelines that need to be looked at and replaced, possibly in the Danville area. We have identified at least 2 of the green ones that are located up here that need work. We will be evaluating the ones that are in yellow to determine whether they need to be included in a project. But this project probably would be looked at and designed over the next year, working with the city or the town and making sure that we're coordinating very closely with them over the improvements that we have to take care of. So those are the local projects that we have down in the southern area. Most of the other projects I showed you a minute ago in the collection system are all up in the other local areas for the other board members, but we have a very aggressive collection replacement program. So how do we pay for all this? What are the rates and charges that we have to impose in order to accomplish the things? And I know that the customers are really interested in this, and clearly looking forward, the district, I think, has done a great job of planning and trying to participate in understanding what the impact not only on the customers are, but on the capital program that we have. So currently our rates and charges this year are $530 per year for single family residents, $513 per year for multiple family. And then next year the board actually just agreed to move forward with a 7% rate increase that was talked about last year and was identified in our Prop 218 notice to all of our ratepayers. We're moving forward with that. And all of these charges that you see on this table are based on the same kinds of development of the charge for both commercial, industrial, and schools. The only difference is how those are collected. So all the charges for single family and most multiple family are collected on the property tax rolls, whereas the commercial, industrial, and schools generally are charged directly by the district to those individuals because of their varying volume and discharge parameters of BOD, suspended solids, and ammonia, which is what we use to create those charges. So that's the current rate structure. I want to look a little bit though at last year. Last year at this time we presented to you, and we have a 10-year financial plan that our financing department has put together and has been in place for several years now, but it looks out 10 years for what the impact of our overall increases will be. And you can see based on last year's presentation, we expected to be with a 7% increase for the next 3 or 4 years, and then hopefully 6% after that. But if in the bottom line, the line that's right here, that was how much bonding we felt we were going to need because of the fact that we didn't have enough revenue in order to sustain the needs for the capital replacement program that's jumping up so high. So we expected to have to spend or issue $535 million worth of bonds over this 10-year period. Good news is the staff's done a great job of looking at and evaluating things, and this is the 18-19 evaluation from the financial plan. While that we still have the 7% rate increases for the next 3 years that are potential, there will be a couple of 6%ers, and then we drop down to 5%. And that is really intended to fund almost exclusively the capital replacement program that we have at the treatment plant. The good news here, 2 pieces of good news. One is that our overall cost for the sewer service charge will only approach about $900 at the end of the 10-year period now based on what we've got. But the bonding now is down from $500 million to $185 million based on the money that we've received from the evaluations that the staff has done of the needs for facilities. And we're going to talk about some of the exciting things that have come out of the pre-design work that's been done that really has cut down the overall bonding need from $850 million down to $805 million. Okay, so where do we stand in terms of the comparisons with our neighbors? Everybody always wants to know what my neighbor's paying. Well, you have here on a side-by-side chart a list of the survey that's was done last year for sewer service charges in 17-18, and you can see that the highest sewer service charges are in Santa Rosa, and they're about $1,200, $1,300 per year for sewer service. You also see in the second column what the proposed 18-19 rate is from the agencies that we were able to obtain information. And then finally, the next column, the estimated AVU, that's the assessed value or property tax revenue. And you can see across the board, not everybody received property tax, but we do. And so we try to compare, in this particular case, our total cost to the ratepayer compared to the total cost of the other agencies. And so you see here on the right, or the left, I guess, this is the average of all the agencies in the survey, about $661. Central San, in the year that we compared, was at $530 plus 96 for our property tax, for a total of $626. We were still below the average for the area. This year, with our increase to $567, our total cost will be about $663, or right out at the average of all of the people in this survey. The reality, though, is that many of the agencies that you see in this particular column have not all established what their rate's going to be going forward. Many of them will have rate increases that will probably jump this table up, but this is at least a picture from a year ago of where we stand compared to the neighbors and everybody around us. And I think it portrays a very good picture of the district doing its best to maintain and keep as low a rate as possible, but recognizing the reality of the fact that replacement needs are there. And unfortunately, the Clean Water Act in the 70s provided lots of money for renewal and replacement. or for at least the construction of many of these facilities, but the funds are no longer available from the federal government, and agencies are having to pay on their own for all of the improvements. So what do we expect going forward? Well, this graph is a very interesting graph. It provides what we think the future looks like for rates and charges. The blue line that's in here on the top is the National Association of Clean Water Agencies does an annual survey of rates and charges, and these are the rates and charges projected from the past and into the future for just Region 9, which is here on the West Coast. Compared to the two green lines are Central Sand. So the checkered line is our total cost, both with property tax as well as the sewer service charge, whereas the solid green line is just the sewer service charge. And that's all compared to CPI. So nationally, in the involvement I've had in some of the national things, most wastewater agencies are in a position where they are going to have to exceed rate increases beyond CPI for the immediate future in order to cover the replacement of the assets that were built a long time ago, because many of those assets are now wearing out and are in dire need of replacement. So this is what the future generally looks like, unfortunately, but it is what it is. So what new initiatives do we have that we've undertaken? Things that are important, I think, to the local area. The first one that we're looking at is patio dining. How many of you have been out and had the opportunity to sit out on a clear night out in front of a restaurant and watch the people go by, and either in Danville or in San Ramon or Walnut Creek especially? So far, restaurants are expanding their use. They're expanding their look at the ability to bring more people in and be able to provide more service. But that more service also means that there's now more dishes to wash. Now there's more discharge. Now there's more water to drink. All of those things really do impact the district. And the district over the last 2 years has been looking at the impact of these patio dining facilities on our overall costs and our overall wastewater discharge permits, because we, in large part, require people to pay into the system for the impact that they're going to have on our system. And with the studies that we've done have indicated that indeed these patio restaurants do indeed impact the overall wastewater collection system and the wastewater needs of the district. So in the past we've been able to charge for those things, but we wanted to take a look and see what the reasonable charge for these patio dining things were. And as a result of those evaluations, we've determined that new capacity fees should only apply to sit-down restaurants and bars, and not to delis, not to coffee shops or any of these similar types of uses, because really that they're not providing the kinds of expansion of the overall wastewater discharge that sit-down restaurants and bars are. So the board has agreed and put in place new charges for patio dining, and those went into effect recently. It's based on the work that and the evaluation of the fair and equitable charges, we believe, for the increase in cost. Those charges are based on a square footage basis for the expansion of that area. And so one of the things we would ask your agencies to do if you're here is to make sure that anybody that wants to put in a patio dining, if they come in for a building permit, that they get to the district and talk to us a little bit before they do it, because trying to go back later on and collect our money is not as easy as we would like. The second initiative, which really is a statewide initiative, had to do with the accessory dwelling units. You may all recall that 2 years ago the state legislature approved the concept of allowing accessory dwelling units for individuals to try to deal with the housing market and the problems with the housing market. 2 years ago, when the state legislature approved their document and their requirements and limited the amount of fees that could be charged for accessory dwelling units, they left out of that legislation anything to do with water and wastewater agencies. Well, they came back this last year and corrected that, and now wastewater service charges or capacity fees for these accessory dwelling units needs to be based on a reasonable evaluation of what the impact is. And so as a result of the new law going into effect on January 1st, the district took a proactive approach, because we already had been approached by several homeowners that wanted to put in ADUs that we looked at and evaluated the impact on the district. We went through and evaluated the new capacity fees that we felt were appropriate, and we have now established fees that were effective on October the 8th, 2.5 months prior to the implementation of the law, that allowed some of these homeowners that wanted to put in ADUs to move forward And we believe that we've responded appropriately to the new accessory dwelling unit requirements and tried to deal with that so that residents who are doing these things know what to expect and how it has to be paid for. So those are two big initiatives that we've had going on at the district that I think really impact the local area down here. So let's talk a little bit about recycled water, the most exciting thing in our business in the last 4 or 5 years. And unfortunately, the drought went away, or at least the people think the drought went away. And so, but we're still at the district very, very interested in trying to deal with the recycled water and issues related to recycled water. So we have a graphic here trying to show exactly what's going on with recycled water at Central Sand. We receive sewage from our 1,500-mile collection system. That's up there on the top left. We are currently discussing things with the Diablo Country Club for possible diversion right out of the pipelines. We're talking to others about other options, other country clubs. We're talking with Dublin San Ramon about a possible sharing of some sewage in that area. But the reality is the way wastewater deals right now, it comes into Central Sands treatment plant, it goes to our filter plant, which is a tertiary or third stage clearing, goes to the clear well. We then pump water into zone 1, which is in the Pleasant Hill area. We also use a lot of water at the treatment plant for cooling and things like that, and water uses at the plant. Those things then discharge back to the treatment plant. And ultimately, most of our flow, or about 30 million gallons a day, go out into the Sassoon Bay for discharge into that bay. So that's the process that we have right now, but we have some new and exciting opportunities that exist out here. We have the DCC, the Diablo Country Club, which is a very interesting possible diversion. We've talking, as I said, with Dublin San Ramon over a possible diversion there. But our Zone 1 is kind of at the point where it could be expanded, but we need more capacity at the treatment plant. But there's a whole lot of more water that could be used. We only use about 5 million gallons a day of recycled water currently in this loop that you see right here. That leaves about 25 million gallons available for something other than Sassoon Bay. And so we have started to talk with DCC, Dublin San Ramon, and a new exciting venture with Contra Costa Water District for the possible reuse both at the Concord Naval Weapons Station, or what's now called the Concord Reuse Project. And then we have a brand new and exciting initiative that we're looking at that deals with Contra Costa Water. Currently, Contra Costa Water takes 20 million gallons a day. They bring it in and import it from the river, and they sell it to the refineries that are just outside and to the north of the district. Those refineries are using about 20 million gallons of water. This is raw water that comes in from the river and that they sell then directly to them. So the issue for this whole thing is 20 million gallons. That sounds like a lot. That would be something we would be very interested in. So what could be done possibly to deal with this whole issue of recycled water and expand on it? One of the options that has been suggested and that we're looking at, working with both Contra Costa Water and the Santa Clara Valley Water District, we've entered into an MOU with the 3 agencies to look at and evaluate the possibility of Central Sand providing 20 million gallons a day of recycled water to Contra Costa Water, who would then sell it to the refineries in lieu of this 20 million gallons that they took from the river. And that river water then would be expanded into, or transferred into the Los Vaqueros Reservoir. A new pipe would be transferred, Bethany Pipeline would be proposed and built, and then the Santa Clara Valley Water District, who is short of water, would have the opportunity to use this new found resource from the 20 million gallons up to 20 million as a possible resource for their use in the Santa Clara Valley. A regional reuse program, very large, very expansive, with lots of challenges, but the reality is that the 3 agencies are now really looking at that water exchange program. It's a very exciting program. It's going to take several years to evaluate. The MOU that we've currently entered into deals with looking at the costs, looking at the facilities that would need to be done, understanding what kind of water quality the Martinez refineries require, because they already do their own treatment of the raw water when it comes in. And so what we would be replacing with this recycled water is water that had a quality that came here. And so we have to know what those things are. So the MOU at this point is to really look at and determine what are the physical requirements for this to make it work. And we were very, very excited about this opportunity. We will be going forward to look at it. It's not anything that's going to be done in the next 2 or 3 years, but it's something that we think has long-term potential to really utilize almost all of the recycled water that could be available from the district, from our treatment plant that's currently treating about 35 million gallons a day. An exciting opportunity. But it's not the only opportunity. We also have the Diablo Country Club opportunity, and most of you were not here last year, but we have entered into an agreement, or we're working on an agreement with the Diablo Country Club for them to take sewage directly from this diversion point, take it back up to the country club, treat that water at the country club into recycled water, put it into their lakes on the country club itself, and to be used for irrigation on the country club. And so the water would have to get from here up to the country club, and as I understand it, they're evaluating opportunities for how to get that water there. The original discussions were along Diablo Road, and they're working on how best to get the water from the diversion point down here all the way into the country club itself. This is a program that would be fully funded by the Diablo Country Club, and is something that we're real excited about. We hope in the next year or so to really have this thing tied down. And the next steps in this entire program really look like the Diablo Country Club is in the process of hiring a consultant to go through and do their design development, and they hopefully will get that done in the not too distant future. Central San is going to be the CEQA agency, so we will be reviewing and evaluating the environmental consequences of this with a draft environmental impact report that we hope to have sometime in November or late this year. There will be a 45-day comment period after that, and then hopefully when that's all finished, we can really start moving forward with really consuming and finishing this project up. But we're excited about this opportunity. It's really a first of its kind, especially in this local area. We have at least one other country club that's interested in looking at this, so this is a pilot program for the district. But we're really looking through and figuring out the district would be operating the recycled water facility on the country club. We're working very closely with the town of Danville over this particular project, and we appreciate all the hard work from the Diablo Country Club people who are here in the back of the room that really hopefully will make this thing a go in the not too distant future. So, recycled water. Well, how much recycled water are we providing each year? Well, last year we provided almost 2.5 million gallons of water in up to 300 gallon totes. And you can see here the breakdown of who came for what kind of water from both Danville and San Ramon. From 92 customers in Danville, 473 loads came out last year, totaling 96,000 gallons of water. Now this is not anywhere close to the total amount that the agency discharged gave away during the drought itself. Things have fallen off a little bit because, you know, the drought's over, there's no longer a problem. But we're doing everything we can to continue to encourage people to take water. We continue to have people coming to the treatment plant, utilizing our facilities there, and we're really proud of the fact that we've been able to provide all this water free of charge, both to residences as well as to the construction community with our truck fill station. Innovation. One of the watchwords when you have an $805 million program, one of the issues of that is how do you get the best and brightest to make sure that you're doing the most efficient type of use and that you're spending as few dollars as possible. I want to walk through just quickly some of the things that we've done in the last couple of years to deal with innovation. First thing we looked at is a lime reduction testing to hopefully be able to cut down the amount of lime we have to put into the sludge that goes into our incinerator. It's very expensive, so we spent $19,000 doing a bench test on lime reduction. We expect that this might lead to ultimately to a reduction of over $300,000 per year in our costs for lime going forward. The original pilot test and bench test has been very successful, and we're moving on now to a full-scale testing to determine just how far we can go with reducing the use of lime. Wet scrubber pilot. This is a real wonderful opportunity to really see how things work. one of the air regulations on our incinerator suggested that we needed to have some new regulations and new equipment in order to deal with those regulations. The wet scrubber project was identified as a huge project that could have some very costly air quality requirements, and we agreed to ultimately do a full-scale pilot program at the treatment plant. And if you look at the picture on the left, the pipes and everything that you see that's in white are the things that were added to accomplish this pilot program. At the end of the pilot program, it was determined that our incinerator's in good shape, that we really don't have significant problems, but in the end, the determination was we could meet the air quality standards with what we have, and so as a result of that, we've been able to take $14 million out of our capital program that won't be necessary in the next 10 years as we originally thought. So that's one of the huge reductions and values of some of the pilot tests and pilot programs that we're running. So here's the wet scrubber program. You can see who was involved in this. We did actually over 2,000 air and liquid tests, samples that were analyzed. We managed 10 contracts. We had 0 safety incidences, and we expect to save $14 million as a result of the work that was done on here. And as a result of that, this program really has paid for itself. Scrubber water treatment bench testing. We're currently running that to determine some of the heavy metals and turbidity problems that we have at the plant, whether there are better ways to deal with that. And some of the bench testing that's being done is showing very significant reduction in the metals that you see here listed along the bottom. The blue lines in the charts are where things are currently, and then the other lines are for various levels of pH addition that would result in reductions in those metals. So we're going through evaluating those things to determine in the future how we can get those out of the waste stream. We're also looking at our secondary treatment program and evaluating the needs for future secondary biological treatment. There's a budget for this project for about $50,000, and as a result of this, we may very well see a $20 million reduction in our overall program as a result of some of the work that we think will be done to provide really significant understanding of what really needs to be done out there. Solids P3. We appreciated as part of the wastewater master plan that our solids program, which currently all of our solids go to the incinerator, we have no solids disposal that the district does other than ash, and that ash is disposed of as it comes out of the back end of the incinerator. The belief was that that incinerator probably didn't have as long a life, and then we needed to start to look at alternatives and options for doing sludge handling and hauling. And so the original master plan looked at the possibility of regular digestion and regular disposal and hauling of the sludge. So we entered into a demonstration project with the possibility of developing a P3 or a public-private program to really develop innovative solutions, innovative technologies that would be both energy providing as well as deal with our sludge problem. We've gone through this entire solids handling program, and we just learned this week that as a result of all the work we've done, that the solids program probably is good for the next 20 years. And so much of the work that we thought we might have to do in the solids program now can be significantly deferred out to the future, and that this solids handling demonstration project has been called to a halt at this point. But the energy portion of that is still going to be evaluated and looked at going forward. So again, an example of really getting in and understanding the nuts and bolts of what needs to happen and whether it really needs to take place or not. And as a result of all that, the district was named at the Global Water Summit a leading utility of the world for all of the work that we've done over the last several years. We're very proud of this award. We also learned just recently that the district, over the last 20 years, we have met every requirement in our NPDES permit, and NACWA will be providing the district with a 20-year platinum award for meeting all of the discharge regulations under our NPDES permit in their meeting in July in back east. So we've done a very good job. I think the staff has done a great job of keeping us moving forward, while at the same time making sure that we meet all 109 of those regulations that I talked about earlier, and but we're very proud of the things that we've done. And finally, we want to talk a little bit about outreach and education. We have lots of programs at Central San for kids, lots of programs for teenagers, lots of programs, and our newest program of the last 3 or 4 years is our Central San Academy, which has been very successful, and we will encourage any of you to come and check it out. It's a 6-week program for adults to really find out what the district is all about. It runs generally in April and May. This year we had 39 participants. This, as I say, was the 3rd year of the program. And you can see the topics that are covered there at the Academy. You can sign up for this online. It will run again next spring in 2019. And it's run 5 evenings and then 1 day with a tour of the treatment plant, so you can really get in and see exactly what's out there and understand really what's going on with the wastewater business. The staff is also developing a brand new program for kindergarten to 2nd grade. And you can see some of the documents that are being put together. You know, what you learn is you got to get to the kids early. So we're getting to them, you know. I don't think we're going to go any farther back, right, Emily? Is kindergarten as far back as we can go?
I think kindergarten is, well, I think that ensures that they're our customer at kindergarten. So they're still in training.
So anyway, we have these programs. We have programs for 5th graders. We have programs for the high school kids. We have a ship that we run where kids actually get out on a ship and do sampling and testing in the river. But we have a very extensive outreach program, and many of the people that you heard today that are in the outreach program at the district really have done a super job of really making sure that our message is getting out to everyone. They've produced most of what's here today, all of what's here today for the Southern Area Briefing. And we're very, very proud of the work that has been done at the district to really get the public to understand who we are and what we do. And what we do, we think, is a very good job. And as far as our treatment plant is concerned, we're more than happy to provide any of you a tour at any time. All you need to do is get online at centralsan.org. You can sign up for a tour. It's a walking tour at the treatment plant. You can come out and see all these wonderful, beautiful facilities that those of us in the wastewater business are so proud of, and really get to see, you know, when my wife went the first time to a treatment plant, she was amazed. It's going to be stinky, right? Well, no, not necessarily. But she got done, and you know, even the Cub Scouts weren't too concerned about what things looked like until they went to the headworks. And probably you shouldn't bring them to the headworks, Roger, because that may change their attitude. But the reality is, we're more than happy to provide tours of groups, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any of the professional organizations that you might have, Elks, whatever. We're more than happy to provide an opportunity to really see who we are. Had a big event this year. 20th year for our household hazardous waste facility. And it's a partnership between ourselves, Mountain View, and all of our agencies. And in the 20-year history of this household hazardous waste program, we have taken 36 million pounds of hazardous waste out of the system. We actually have had up to, what, somebody brought in 25 pounds of mercury recently in a glass jar. You'd be amazed at the kind of things that come in there. But the reality is, it's not only hazardous waste disposal, but we also have an area where you can come in and actually bring and pick up old paint and things that can be recycled and reused. So we have a store there that's free. All you have to do is come in and you can pick up lots of different things. But this is our household hazardous waste program, and the program that we put together this year. We had a very exciting facility tour and an opportunity for everybody to come out and just see exactly how great this thing really is. And with that, we want to give you kind of our latest.
We're going to check this out.
Is old paint cluttering your garage? Stop by Central San and recycle it at our household hazardous waste facility. And come find your free paint.
So that's our latest little commercial for our household hazardous waste facility. It's currently running on a lot of the local networks. I've seen it 3 times. Anybody else seen the, well, you guys got to get out and take a look at this and come down to the household hazardous waste facility. Okay, with that, last slide or two, the regular board meetings. These are the members of the board of directors. I'm in the southern area. We meet first and third Tuesdays at the district's offices at 1:30 in the afternoon. We would be more than happy to have you there. Our next meeting early in July, or in June, I guess, we will be considering the budget and the capital improvement program for adoption. We will be considering rates and fees and charges. We would love to have people there if you're very interested in it. But I think with that, we generally covered everything I wanted to cover, and I'd be happy to try to answer questions or have any comments that any of you might have. So with that, thank you all for being here, and we'll go from here. Any questions? Yes, sir. No.
Paul, I just want to compliment you. That's your best presentation yet.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
And I tell you why. It's on several levels. One, I think the district has become much more transparent on its financials. I think your cost comparison chart of looking at other districts and how what are their rates? It's the same thing we do as cities. We're trying to say, how do we provide government services per capita and things like that. And I think that's important. And I'm glad you're looking at it, because I think it tells you where you're at as a benchmark. Each district's a little different. But the fact is ultimately it's doing the same thing. And I think the testing and the level that you're trying to find those opportunities to improve the environment and meet standards and how to reduce cost is also admirable. The question I have is on, you got 25 million gallons of excess water flow, and it looks like there may be an opportunity you'd use 20 million of that to go to concentrated water and ultimately to the refinery. Given your proximity, you can't just do a direct delivery to them, is there, because there's not an infrastructure, you can't tap into their system?
That's a possibility. The issue really boils down to one of loss of revenue. So there's a duplication of service requirement that deals with water districts and sewer districts. Sewer district has the ability to discharge and sell recycled water. So does Contra Costa Water District. We've over the years tried to work together on this. We've tried to work with the refineries. There are some pipelines that are available out there. Those issues have never been able to get past the issue of Contra Costa Water would lose a significant amount of revenue that they count on for their overall cost of the district. And so one of the things that, to Roger Bailey's credit, really started to look at and determine, hey, well, do we need to transfer the water directly to them? What if we gave it, sold it, whatever, to Contra Costa Water, let them figure out how to sell it back to the refineries to offset their cost, and then what do we do with the value of the water that's there? There have been several studies done recently. There's a regional study on recycled water that talks about regional programs. We have contacted several agencies around us to determine the use for that. We did our own recycled water program to look at various options and alternatives for us on recycled water to use everything. The 20 million gallons that you saw up here, while not everything, there are other things that we have the Concord Naval Weapons Stations that we've already issued a will serve letter to, so we have a responsibility to that. We have a responsibility to Diablo Country Club, and so we're trying to manage and make sure that we don't overcommit ourselves a little bit like the state has with the river. But that's really what the issue really has is the duplication of service and the need for revenue, not enhancement, revenue dealing with the water district.
So how do we get it in Danville? I spend $1.25 million a year just on water, just by the time.
That's a very good question.
We're in between,
Right.
I don't care where it comes from in a way, but the fact is we seem to be in the sweet spot of nowhere. And what Diablo may get, that's a really small scale, single use kind of thing. But we can't get from DSR because we're kind of like too far away, and we're too far away from you.
Well, we are talking to DSR to hopefully maybe supplement their ability to provide recycled water. Where it would go, I think, is really up to them. I think they're finishing up a an evaluation and a program that, to evaluate that. Unfortunately, I think you are kind of in the dead zone, unfortunately, because it's a long pump for us to come all the way back. Whether someday, you know, when I first started in this business 100 years ago, we had 1,000 different satellite facilities, treatment plants, and we went to regional facilities. And the problem with regional facilities now is you're seeing it kind of start to decentralize again because the uses of water are different all over the place. Whether ultimately someday there would be a treatment plant down in this area for just recycled water is not being looked at currently. Whether it could be or not, who knows, maybe. But the issue really boils down to stranded assets, a little bit like I think PG&E is going to find itself with all these new types of power that are out there. How do you deal with the stranded asset and the cost for the facilities that you already have and that you're building? But unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you for trying to get recycled water to your facility, other than buy a truck, get a 300-gallon tote, and come on to the district. We'll give you all the free water you can haul home.
Freeway traffic.
Yeah. Well, you can even bring your water truck. How's that? Yeah. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, your $16 million of tax revenue, is that allocated to any specific central sand program, or does it kind of go into the common pool of funds?
Right now, most of that money goes directly to the renewal and replacement, but it also pays for part of our O&M cost. But anything that is over, I forget exactly the number.
So the priority is to use it for debt service payment.
And anything over and above the debt service payment. And we're paying off a recycled bond this year, so there'll be some more money for that. But we're doing as much as we can to push money into the replacement program, because we know how big the need is over the next 6 or 7 years. And the goal is to really be able to pay for things without incurring debt, if at all possible, because you know how expensive that kind of stuff is. Other questions? Well, if not, yes, sir.
Energy recovery.
Yes.
It's always the most difficult, and sometimes it doesn't pencil out. What options do you feel going forward are the best for essential sand, being that there's no digestion or opportunities for like feedstocks to bring to the facility?
Well, we're very lucky. We actually have a landfill next to us, and so we're getting landfill gas that we use in our cogen engines. Cogen engines generate a vast majority of our power, and what we can't get from the landfill gas is supplemented with PG&E natural gas. But I think going forward, looking at our sustainability, I think the issue of the landfill gas won't always be there. And so what do we do to replace that? One of the things that we're looking at right now, and Roger will be, and the staff will be issuing an RFP for an energy evaluation to look at what our options are going forward for some of those things. Some of that was tied up in the P3 program I talked about. There was to be an energy piece to that that would look at how to provide additional energy to the facilities. But because we've stopped that program, now we're going to split off and look at energy separately. We also have a significant area, as you saw in the picture, of land that's wide open where it's an overflow. Probably that's, in my view, this one board member's view, it's a great place for solar energy. But does it pencil out? That's the kind of thing we have to take a look at, determine. The staff did look at it several years ago and didn't find that it was economically advantageous. We're currently paying about 9 cents per kilowatt compared to PG&E at 12 or 13 cents. So we're undercutting their costs based on what we've got. But we find that the energy production is also tied to our incinerator from the heat and all these things. So it's not a straightforward, you know, just put in the solar panels and it offsets something else. It's more complicated than that. Thanks for the question. Okay. If there's nothing else, thanks everyone for being here. I think hopefully you've gotten something positive out of this.